Hello, hello, and welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast. Once again, I am your host, Mio, and today I'm breaking down UFC Saudi Arabia, or I guess I should technically call it UFC Riyadh. Usually we go with the city name, but are we going to have any cards in Saudi Arabia that are not at Riyadh? I don't know. And also, we'll talk about PFL 5 really quickly at the top of the show here because some people have been asking for PFL 5 stuff, and the issue is I'm just not going to do a deep dive on it. But you know what? I am willing to give you just a quick rundown of the picks. So PFL 5, we got Clay Collard versus Mads Burnell. I'm taking Mads Burnell. He can grapple. He's a physical wrestling standout. That's historically just not really been a way that there's not historically been really much of a way for Collard to win those fights. Like if you look at his wins, it's Pitbull, it's Shane Burgos, it's Stevie. I guess Stevie Ray kind of is a wrestler, but still. And then we got Nishikawa, Jeremy Stevens, Jelton Lutterbuck, who we're going to talk about in a bit, Anthony Pettis. These are all guys who are kind of renowned for being stand and bang kind of guys, and guys who are not necessarily incapable of wrestling and grappling. Like Pettis is actually a pretty good grappler, all things considered. And Pitbull can grapple and so on, but it's not their A game. It's not what they're going to go to, and it's not something they're comfortable going to, except maybe Stevie Ray. I'm trying to remember Stevie Ray now off the top of my head. Stevie Ray is one of those fighters who goes into the background for me, and I just. But he also lost to Clay Collard on a 3-fight losing skid to Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Natan Schulte, and his only 2 wins since 2020 are Anthony Pettis back to back. So Mads Burnell, he lost his first fight in the tournament, obviously, and that's going to be harmful. Losing by guillotine choke to Michael Dufort, who we'll talk about in a bit. But I do think that his ability to get the fight to the ground and also his aggressive ability and multi-sub hunting ability should be enough to get Clay Collard, but we'll see. Mads Burnell by submission, that's my pick. Impa Kasanganay versus Jacob Nadeau. I'm going with Impa Kasanganay. I picked against him in his first fight. I had Alex Polizzi beating him, and he made me regret that. So I'm going to go with him now. Nadeau didn't look too bad again. Actually, hang on. I'm misremembering who Nadeau fought. He actually did get basically crushed by Yagshimuradov. So yeah, that's a bit of a no-brainer. I got to go with Kasanganay. Patricky Pitbull versus Bruno Miranda. Bruno Miranda, not very good. So I got to go with Patricky Pitbull. That's the type of fight that Pitbull tends to win. Miranda. Granted, Olivier Aubin-Mercier and Brent Primus are perfectly suitable fighters, for course, but the biggest win of Bruno Miranda's career is a split decision against Alex Martinez, which I have not seen in a hot bit. It was for a year ago. I want to say I remember scoring it for Martinez, so that doesn't really help, if you know what I mean. And he's got a lot of kind of random losses there. I'm not picking him to beat Pitbull, but Pitbull is also 38 years old and is kind of wearing some problems with the losses to Clay Collard, Shalibli, and Usman Nurmagomedov recently. But I don't know. This feels more like the Roberto de Souza, Peter Queally level of stuff that he still has been able to pass. Rob Wilkinson versus Josh Silvara. I am not the biggest fan of Josh Silvara, and I've never been able to figure out why. Honestly, it's not who he's lost to, because he lost to Impa Kasanganay and Omari Akhmedov, who I do respect as fairly good fighters. Maybe it's the fact that I just don't see them as 205ers. And that's kind of the thing, is that his losses are to non-205 talent, and his wins over legit 205 talent is top set at Delon Monte and Ty Flores, because Sadabusi is a former welterweight. I can't count that as a 205er, and he also picked up a thumb injury in that one. Yeah, I got to go with Rob Wilkinson. There you go, by decision. Yagshimuradov versus Simon Biong. That is all Yagshimuradov all day. I am not going to pick Simon Biong against anyone at PFL level, actual competitive PFL level. That's just all there is to it. Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Alex Polizzi. That's just a bad stylistic matchup for Polizzi. I think Antonio Carlos Jr.'s run at 205 has been incredibly impressive. It's been stunning. I didn't think it would go very well. He wasn't a particularly big middleweight. He went up to 205, and I'm how's this going to work out? But apparently really, really well. And Politze is a guy who I think needs a grappling edge over somebody to actually beat them. So I'm going with Antonio Carlos Jr. there. Brent Primus versus Solomon Renfro. Renfro is just absolute filler in this tournament. I'm going with Brent Primus by submission. If not, by decision, if not submission, I guess. There you go. Tom Breeze versus Sadabusi. I'm going with Tom Breeze. I have faith in Tom Breeze to just bring the grappling to Sadabusi. And again, I kind of brought it up before, but C is a former 170 guy. I don't really know who I'm going to pick him to beat in this tournament unless he gets Simon Beyond. But I think this is the final fight, right? There's only 2 fights in the PFL tournament. So there you go. Gadzi Radabanov versus Elvin Espinoza. I'm going with Radabanov. I'm not sold on Espinoza yet, although he did get a cool flying knee win against Adam Piccolotti. But as much as he's got all the athleticism and stuff, he's just a little bit too unrefined for me to pick. But hey, you know what? It's a chance to prove himself against a guy who isn't terribly confusing to fight. I'll put it that way. It's very much a straightforward stylistic matchup of the classic Dagestani or Chechnya. I should look up where Gadzi's actually from. Fighting out of St. Petersburg. Okay, so he is maybe not from the Caucasus. He really looks like he's from the Caucasus though, and it's got his place of birth is just Russia. So I don't know. Maybe not. Whatever. But I do have him winning the fight. Michael Dufort against Adam Piccolotti. I'm going to take a flyer on the Canadian here and go with Michael Dufort. I don't think he's that good, but I don't think Adam Piccolotti's that good either. And Adam Piccolotti's been really, really prone to random dynamic moments of offense where he gets hurt or staggered or otherwise taken out of the flow of things and then gets finished. So that does seem like a Dufort kind of thing right now, given that he, as I said, did pick up that guillotine victory against Mads Burnell. He's also done that kind of thing to Joe Giannetti, to Luis Pena, to no one else noteworthy. But there you go. I will, as a result, be going with him. Anthony Romero against Sergio Casio. I don't really know Casio enough to say anything. I'm going with Romero, but that's just, there you go. Andrew Sanchez versus Carl Albrechtsen. I'm going with Albrechtsen because I always get a really, really bad vibe off of Sanchez. I want to say that I've never really picked him in a fight. I'm probably wrong on this. I'm probably mistaken. There's probably some point I picked him to win. You know what? You got to go back to Marcus Perez. You got to go all the way back to August 2018 against Marcus Perez for me to have picked him to win a fight. That's kind of stunning, honestly. He did win. And then you got to go with Ryan James, Trevor Smith. I also picked him to win that fight. So there you go. Don't take my word for it when I'm picking Andrew Sanchez to lose. It's just kind of my default setting. And then I don't know Zurcher and Ruiz at all. They're 8-0 and 4-0, so they've got some I guess they've got some a little bit of hype, I guess. By the way, Albrechtsen on his third opponent. Okay, that could be interesting. That could be weird. Anything spicy on the betting odds for PFL here? Clay Collard's a favorite against Mads Burnell. I'd be pretty willing to bet on Burnell at plus 250. By the way, the usual betting stance is here. Do not use this as a means of economic freedom or anything like that. This is MMA. Things are too unreliable, a little bit insane for that to be really the case. But, if you want to put down a couple of dollars to have some fun, go ahead. But, Burnell looks good at those odds. Kasanganai's a prohibitive favorite. I'm not really going to do anything there. Pitbull is an underdog on DraftKings and BetMGM. And BetRivers. Wow. The disrespect. He's not a big underdog anywhere. He taps out at plus 105. But still. All right, that's worth a look. Josh Silvara versus Rob Wilkinson. Wilkinson is the favorite by more than I care to bet on. Yak Shamirdov is too much of a favorite against DeBiong. I don't know, maybe I could work that into a parlay. Polizzi is a sizable underdog against Antonio Carlos Jr. Brett Primus. Primus is not much of a favorite against Solomon Renfro. We're talking minus 166 to minus 190. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. Sadabusi versus Tom Breeze. Sadabusi is the favorite. I kind of get why. I mean, Tom Breeze is like all kinds of bad vibes, so like I do understand that. His whole UFC run, I think, has like permanently poisoned him for like the well. If we're being honest, he just had so many things behind the scenes go wrong, and he did just recently get destroyed by Rob Wilkinson. But I don't know. I feel reasonably good about him winning that fight. That might be worth looking at as a bet. And looking further on down here, Espinoza is a Espinoza and Rabadanov. Boom, there you go. There's some betting room there. They're like minus 250 plus 250 type area. Adam Piccolotti is the underdog against Dufort. Damn it, I was hoping Dufort would be the underdog. He is the favorite at minus 156 to minus 163, so that's not really bettable. Anthony Romero is a big favorite against Casio. Sanchez is a fairly large underdog against Albrechtsen. And Zurcher is apparently the big favorite in that fight with Ruiz. I don't know enough to bet, but apparently it's minus 350 up to minus 549. It's pretty big. Pretty big difference there. All right, let's talk about the UFC here. This card has gone through a lot of changes. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights that have fallen apart. Of course, this was supposed to be Whittaker versus Chimaev. Chimaev pulling out with food poisoning / illness, really casting a large amount of doubt on his future. Shara Bullet has been booked here twice against Ihor Potieria, who withdrew. I don't think I know the reason. And then was supposed to fight Jolton Lutterbach, which would have been a fun fight, but a stupid one because Lutterbach has fought as low as lightweight. Like what even was that? He's an insane man, but apparently he was on the roids. He admitted to being on the roids and tested positive. So there you go. So that fell apart. And now we have that against another known roid user, Antonio Tricoli. Or Tricoli? I forget how it's pronounced. And then we were supposed to have Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Montel Jackson. That fell apart. We were supposed to have Fareed Basharat versus Montel Jackson. That fell apart. Montel Jackson is off the card. And we were supposed to have Muhammad Naimov versus Melshik Bagdasarian, which was going to be a fun fight. That's off. The replacement's pretty decent. Abu Azaitar versus Dennis Tialunin, also off the card. And working on my way further down here, then we were supposed to have Cedricus Dumas against Dennis Tialunin. That's off the card because of visa issues for Dumas. By the way, you know you have to have bad vibes and bad political outlooks when you cannot get a visa for a UFC card in Saudi Arabia and your predominant issue is domestic violence. You know that is a problem at that point. So anyways, maybe we just give up on Dumas now. We won't. Anyways, Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov is now the main event. I broke down Aliskerov last week when I was talking about him fighting Chakali, and now it's here. Same things applied. I'm not on the hype train. He is physically talented. He has good sambo. He has good wrestling. His stand-up is effective, but very, very awkward, very stiff at times. But my problem is that the hype around him is basically he stopped the takedown from Chimaev. Chimaev said nice things, but we're going to ignore that he got knocked out in 2 minutes and 26 seconds by Chimaev. And Chimaev's proven record at 185 actually kind of limited. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to say this very, very clearly. Chimaev at 185 is going to be a force if he ever gets it together and actually makes it to the cage. But his success is at 170, where he is massive. And Aliskerov looked small compared to him. He's 6 foot tall, 76-inch reach. He's got long arms at least, but he's not huge. So I don't really know how that's supposed to be I do not know how that is supposed to be a thing. And this is also a late notice replacement fight with Aliskerov was working for Andre Muniz and then for Tricoli, who are both more predominantly grappling threats. Whittaker is a predominantly striking threat. He can grapple. He can wrestle. He will use that if that's available. But he's probably going to be more or less a kickboxer working behind his jab here and building up combinations, going to the body, calf kicks, etc. Being the complete nightmarish striking matchup that he is generally able to be. As a result, so I don't have Aliskerov's like physicality thing to really back up here. And his best wins are Warley Alves, Phil Haas, and Nanshan Baral and Dynasty Alunin. That's like, it's just not that good. Am I going to be stunned if Aliskerov comes out here and just like runs over Whittaker with his sambo and his wrestling and his power grappling and his strong, powerful like physicality? No, but I definitely have to see it before I would ever pick it. So I'm going to go with Whittaker to work behind the jab, pick apart the legs, take advantage of the fact that Aliskerov is actually quite hittable. I mean, all things considered, like, don't get me wrong, Khamzat Chimaev hits like a freaking freight train, but he's not a depth or layered striker. The fact that he dusted this guy in 2 minutes, 26 seconds on the feet is not great. It's not a great sign. I'm going with Whittaker by TKO, but we'll find out. It's a pretty close betting odds at minus 150 to minus 170. Aliskerov plus 120 to plus 130. That'll probably go on my parlay or at least a side bet on Whittaker. Sergei Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov is the co-main event, heavyweight fun. This is an interesting fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward to it. They're both bangers. They're both decent cardio guys. They have some technical attributes that I like. I actually like Volkov's game, all things considered. But I don't have a lot to say because I think this fight is defined by power. Pavlovich is an absolute nuclear weapon when it comes to throwing the hands. He is also got a reach advantage of 4 inches, which is something that you have to go all the way back to Stefan Struve to find for Volkov when he's been facing that. Now, he won that fight, but I mean, Stefan Struve is Stefan Struve. The guy who, famously made a career out of being a tall dude, 6'11", and not being able to fight long. And then, other than that, you got to look at like Walt Harris and Cyril Gahn, which you went 1-1 in with a 1-inch reach disadvantage. I'm going with Pavlovich. Volkov is tough. He is durable, but he is not durable to the point that he cannot be knocked out. And Pavlovich hits really, really hard. And I think the thing is that Pavlovich is limited by the fact that he's not very defensive, and when he opens up, he's going to allow you to hit him back. But Volkov has like kind of been labeled throughout his career as the guy who doesn't really hurt people, the guy who doesn't really go out there and nuke people. Like, that's the missing thing for him at heavyweight, which is a big, big deal. He obviously has stopped people. Alexander Romanov when he looked terrible. Jairzinho Rozenstruik. These are recent fights too. And of course, submission victory over Tai Tuivasa, but like a guy who, I don't know, he just has decisions against guys who are not known to be particularly durable, or he wins by attrition. And against Pavlovich, I think you just have to nuke him when he gets aggressive and, do things a la Tom Aspinall. And that's the thing, is when you've only lost to Tom Aspinall and Alistair Overeem, the rest of the heavyweight division doesn't seem that scary. So Pavlovich by TKO is the pick. Then we have it was booked at 170. It's now going to be at 185 fight between Kelvin Gastelum and Daniel Rodriguez, because apparently Gastelum is having a hard time making the weight because Kelvin Gastelum is a crap show. That's really all I got. On paper, Gastelum should win this fight. He's the better wrestler. He's the better athlete. Rodriguez doesn't have great power. Gastelum is still insanely durable, but I'm not going to pick him. Like, it's just, I am not going to pick a guy who I don't trust has anything outside of the cage put together right now. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if Gastelum goes out there and runs over Rodriguez. Not one bit. Not a single bit. But I don't know. There's just, it's all the bad vibes. There's no positive vibes out of Gastelum's camp right now about what he can do. And yeah, beating Chris Curtis is cool, but he kind of really won the fight because of a headbutt. And then you got to go back to like Ian Heinisch before that. So I've never been a big booster of Rodriguez, but he's got good cardio. He is durable. He does tend to throw a lot of volume, work at a high pace. That sounds like something that should challenge Gastelum, who's coming in on a botch weight cut, essentially. So I'm going to go with Rodriguez by decision. I know this is an underdog pick. I know this is a hot take, but it's what I'm going to do. And if Gastelum wins, Gastelum wins. What are you going to do? Gastelum is the minus 230 to minus 250 favorite. Rodriguez is plus 190 to plus 200. I have by decision for the record as far as a method is concerned. Sharabulit, Shara Magomedov versus Antonio Tricoli or Tricoli. Sharabullet. I went over Tricoli last week, so I don't feel like I need to go too much in deep here. He's just big. He's big and he's a pharmaceutical company. Man has been busted for steroids and is clearly on the roids. So there you go. He's not good at anything at a UFC level. He is more of a grappler than a striker, I suppose. So this is a better fight for him than Aliskerov would have been, because I think Aliskerov would have dusted him easily. But despite all the problems with Sharabullet, the visa issues, the fact that he may or may not be blind in one eye, the fact that his other eye doesn't seem all that great because it kind of drifts off to the side a lot. But for all of that problems, he seems to actually be really, really decent at finding his range and has a good technical striking game. Tricoli's there to be hit repetitively. Yes, Tricoli has a 9-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's 6'5", 82 inches to 6'2", 73 inches. But the fact that he's probably going to just come into the pocket with Sharabullet anyways should get him just absolutely lit up. Probably to do a decision because Sharabullet is not a great finisher, and Tricoli is pretty damn tough. I'm very disappointed we're not getting Sharabullet versus Lutterbuck. But hey, there you go. Sharabullet is a minus 549 to minus 715, favorite. I would not touch that with 10-foot pole. Tricoli is plus 400 to plus 500. Johnny Walker versus Volkan Oezdemir is a battle of guys who I have no good thoughts about realistically. Well, no, okay, that's not true. I am just plagued by doubts. There you go. Johnny Walker is a monster. 6'6", 82.5-inch reach. All the physicality you could think of, realistically speaking. He's not clumsy. He's not uncoordinated like you usually see with a 6'6" guy. He's fast. He's powerful. He was really, really excitingly dynamic. And then he went to SPG and became this tepid, low, boring, low-kicking outside guy. And I don't know. Does that beat Volkan Oezdemir? I don't know. I really don't even know anymore, because the guys who have beaten him are Ankalaev and Hill, who are guys I trust way more to apply physicality to the problem than Oezdemir, who sometimes just is bizarrely timid, bizarrely passive sometimes in his fights. So I don't know. Volkan is a pretty good striker. He's got heavy hands. He's hard to out wrestle. Not that I think Walker's going to try and wrestle him. He has power. Ironically, for a guy with the name No Time, he can sometimes really, really be passive. Like I said, he lacks a decent win over a good striker since Rakic in 2019. I don't count Bogdan Dushkov. And of course, Paul Craig is not anyone's idea of a good striker. So I'm going to go with Walker by decision. I don't trust Oezdemir at a north of 7-inch reach disadvantage because he's got a 75-inch reach. He's also 4 inches shorter. So it's 4 inches shorter and 7.5 shorter in reach. This translates to probably probably something like a foot in in engagement length. So I'll go with Walker just to stay safe and do his thing by decision. We'll see. I'm kind of hoping Oezdemir brings a fight and we get some chaos. Haqparast, odds. Walker is surprisingly minus 110 to minus 112, and Oezdemir minus 108 to minus 115. So really, really, really tight. If you've got a good feeling about this fight, you have that gut idea that one of these guys is actually a lot above the other one, it's definitely bettable. Nasrat Haqparast versus Jared Gordon. I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I like Jared Gordon. I really do. I have no real issues with him on a technical level. He goes out there, he fights to a winning condition and tries to do his thing, but he is not physical. And Haqparast is. And Haqparast may be the guy of brain farts where he'll just have something working and stop doing it, or he'll keep hitting his head against the wall, by doing the same thing that does not work. I would really love to like be inside his brain and be looking at it like, what is going on in here? What neurons are firing when you're fighting? Because I don't understand. You're capable of picking up new stuff and so on, but your application of your skills is so inconsistent. But Gordon's not really going to out wrestle him. Haqparast can keep up with any kind of pace he puts on him. He hits harder. He's faster. He's probably the better technical striker, even when he is brain farting. So I don't know what a Gordon win looks like, honestly. Like, that's the problem. It's weird because I fully expect him to be in this fight. I fully expect this to be a competitive, entertaining fight. It's just, where is that key to victory for Gordon? And that's why I'm going to go with Haqparast by decision. So Haqparast minus 225 to minus 265. Gordon plus 185 to plus 200. Naimov versus Felipe Lima. That's Muhammad Naimov, by the way. I said his name earlier, so I thought that the first name was unneeded. This is a really, really weird fight because this is like a really close betting line. Minus 105 to minus 125 for Naimov. Minus 105 to minus 115 on Lima. But Lima is small. Like, he is an octagon bantamweight champion. He's only 5'6". I don't want to do this man a disservice. And like, I feel like I'm going to with this breakdown because I like the signing. He's fun. He's action heavy. He's got creative striking. I love the pickup. I love the signing, but I love it at bantamweight, not at featherweight. And Naimov is kind of a monster. 5'9", 70-inch reach. He'll have a reach advantage. He'll have a height advantage. He's powerful. He's strong. He can strike. He can grapple. He can wrestle. I know he's like famous for cheating his ass off to win against Nathaniel Wood, but he's a serious 145er. Like, really. And he's got good cardio. He's an elevation fight team type guy. Like, I don't think you can just outpace him. I don't think you can just outwork him. So I'm going with Naimov by decision. Lima is very, very durable. We'll find out. But I don't know. This was the weirdest betting line on the card for me. One of them, actually. One of them. There's one later on that we'll be talking about. But I don't know. I just didn't see this as even money. I know there's a little bit of love around Lima. There's a little bit of hype, but it's just not at this weight class. Renat Fakhretdinov versus Nicholas Dalby. I'm going with Fakhretdinov. There's not much to break down with a Renat Fakhretdinov fight. He's going to try and take you down. He's going to try and crush you with pressure. He's going to try to smother you from top game. Like, that's his thing. He's not a very good striker. He's not a very good deft one. He doesn't really change things up. You know what he's going to try and do. There you go. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got a chin. Don't get me wrong. There's threat on the feet, but it's not a technical type of thing, and it functions better with the wrestling. Dalby does not keep range usually. Like, he is a guy who gets taken down and is really, really hard to hold down and like engages you in endless scrambles, and his cardio just breaks you. I don't think that's the way you beat Fakhretdinov. Which, I mean, I assume is why we have this booking, because obviously the UFC probably wants the Muslim fighters to win in Saudi Arabia. Big surprise. Fakhretdinov by decision. There you go. He's a minus 333 to minus 375 favorite. That's too deep to bet on. And Dalby plus 250 to plus 290. Muin Gafurov versus Kwaiko Kang, pardon me. There is a guy named Kwaiko Kang. That's the problem. Mr. Perfect. We'll just call him Mr. Perfect. That's easier. Kang's nickname is Mr. Perfect. I'm going with Kang here. I'm not going to pick Gafurov against anybody. Don't get me wrong. I respect that Gafurov is here off of not really having a lot of physicality to him and not having a lot of technique to him. Like, he is just takedowns, overhands, and cardio and raw psychotic will to win. And he knows his win condition. That's the thing, is I'm never going to question what he's doing, because like what he's doing is always actually the thing that leads to a win for him. So like, I appreciate that. But he's 0-2 in the UFC. He lost to Chad Anheliger on Contender Series. I legitimately suspect I will never pick him to win a fight. And for Kang, it's kind of the opposite, because I don't trust Kang to fight to a win condition, because he'll wander. He'll do things that don't really make any sense. It's why he has like 10 career losses in fights that realistically, he has no actual business losing. Like, if you really look at them, they're like, you lost to Ronnie Yaya when you are like a strong judo practitioner and ready to go. And way more physical. You had a problem with Pieng Yuan Lu. You had a problem with Brandon Davis. You had a close fight with Michinori Tanaka back in 2014. It is frustrating, but I don't feel comfortable picking Gafarov, even though I appreciate that he is the guy who knows what he has to do way more. All right, that's the best explanation I've got. I've got Kang at some point catching him in a submission and winning that fight. So Gafarov minus 150 to minus 175, Kang plus 120 to plus 145. I'm betting on the underdog. Magomed Gadzi Yashilov versus Brenson Ribeiro. I expected this to be a really, really lopsided betting line, and it's not. This is the other surprise. Gadzi, we'll just call him MG. We'll just call him MG. It's a nickname. MJ. Boom. That makes it so much easier. MG's minus 310 to minus 350. Ribeiro's plus 240 to plus 260. I was expecting there to be like a lot of hype that comes in, like with all of these Islam Makhachev, Ikram Aliskerov, like associated fighters, like that they train with them, at least somewhat, because he trains out of the Bahrain gym, which they're both associated with. And the whole Sambo thing usually gets a lot of hype going on. But it seems like people are like more realistic about this guy, that I just don't think he's a monster at 205. But Ribeiro is a mess in every regard. He's a messy striker, messy wrestler, messy grappler, doesn't have a great chin. I see at some point him just getting taken down probably a couple of times, and MG getting on top of him and pounding him out. So there you go. MG by TKO, minus 350, 310 to minus 350, which is bettable, I think. And Ribeiro plus 240 to plus 260. Then we have the road to the UFC final, Long Zhao versus Chang Ho Lee, pardon me. I'm going with Chang Ho Lee, even though he is the underdog in this fight. I think that he is the more refined talent right now. Long is the type of guy who I think could be way better. Despite having a really, really, really long record, he is only 26. If he gets with some decent coaching, he's got the physicality and like sort of the well-roundedness that could really, really make him something. Like, I mean, like a legitimate contender, a ranked guy. Not a champion. I think it's a little bit late for that, but like a guy who is winning UFC main card fights in like 4 years' time when Lee is gone. Because I just don't think Lee has that level of physicality to stick around. But he makes too many mistakes right now. He is takedownable. He is outscrambleable. He is a scrambler. He's very, very hard to control, but like Lee gets on top of people and tends to terminate them. He actually has pretty good ground and pound. So I'm going with Lee by TKO. I don't usually pay a lot of attention to the road to the UFC tournaments, but this is actually a pretty good one. This final here at bantamweight, it's very solid. There you go. Long Zhao or Zhao Long is minus 110 to minus 122. Lee is plus 100 to minus 110. I'll probably be putting a little bit of money on him, even though I'm not super confident on it, because there is always the athletic cheatery that Long Zhao or Zhao Long, I am really bad with the order for Asian names, just comes out and he is too physical for Lee to actually implement his game. There you go. So that is the fight card. Check for the links down below. I'll be back to review later, and that's about it. I really need a more snappy closing line here.